China's real estate bubble has burst, with a staggering amount of unsold and listed properties leading to a significant drop in housing prices. A woman who spent 800,000 yuan on a house last year discovered upon receiving it today that its value had plummeted to 470,000 yuan, leaving her devastated and in tears.
I'm truly anxious right now. I've defaulted on my mortgage for over a year, and my house has been seized and is up for auction. Not only have I lost the down payment and the monthly repayments I've made over the years, but now I also owe the bank more than 200,000 yuan. I bought the house in 2019 for 1.35 million yuan, with a down payment of 420,000 yuan and a loan of 930,000. So my monthly payment was 5,363 yuan. Due to circumstances out of my control, I was forced to default on my loan 2 years ago. It was then that I realized I still owed more than 900,000 yuan on the loan. Over 3 years, I paid 180,000 yuan in monthly payments, of which only 20,000 yuan went towards the principal. The rest, 160,000 yuan, was interest. The bank calls daily demanding repayment, and after defaulting for 6 months, I was sued by the bank, and the court's judgment has been issued. Not only was my house seized, but all my bank accounts were also frozen, including even the few yuan in my WeChat. Additionally, I incurred over 100,000 yuan in fees, including penalties, default interest, mortgage handling fees, legal fees, and property preservation fees. A few days ago, the court called to inform me that my house would soon be appraised and auctioned. The appraisal price is 1 million yuan, with a starting bid at 70% of that value, only 700,000 yuan. If someone buys it at the starting bid, not only will I lose my house and the 420 yuan down payment, but I still owe the bank more than 200,000 yuan. Adding the 180 yuan I've already paid in monthly installments, my total loss amounts to over 800,000 yuan. I'm so sad that I can't even cry. I will no longer be the owner of this house, the first house I've ever bought in my life. Now I have to sell it, and it's really hard to let go. I don't want to pay the mortgage anymore. I don't want to put such pressure on myself.
A house bought for 3.2 million yuan was finally sold for only 1.25 million yuan. After defaulting, I went down a path of no return. This was the last photo I took of the house before it went to auction. Every time I see this photo, it's heartbreaking and I can't help but cry. I bought this 4-bedroom, 2-living-room house in 2018 with a down payment of 900,000 yuan and a loan of 2.3 million yuan, so the monthly payments were 12,700 yuan. The pandemic severely impacted my business, and I regret buying this house because I can no longer afford the mortgage payments. I have to say, I've suffered a heavy loss. China is facing another sharp decline in housing prices, affecting cities from first-tier metropolises like Beijing and Shanghai to smaller towns of the 4th and 5th tiers, leading to widespread distress among citizens. Most affected are ordinary individuals who have spent their entire lives saving to buy a home, only to see their property values plummet by hundreds of thousands or even millions of yuan in just a few months. According to calculations by China Economic Weekly, based on new home sale prices in January, the average transaction price for new residential sales in the first 2 months of the year was about 9,600 yuan per square meter. This figure represents a decrease of 2,800 yuan per square meter from the peak in April 2023 of 12,500 yuan. This suggests that housing prices have regressed to levels seen in 2017 and 2018, erasing the gains from the recent surge. However, the downward trend in prices is far from over. A senior researcher at the National Center for Economic Research at Tsinghua University, Han Shu-yun, stated in a video released on March 19th that housing prices in China have fallen nearly 23% over 10 months. With down payments typically at 30%, this means that buyers can lose their entire initial investment within less than a year, which shows that buying a house now is a high-risk investment. She emphasized that the speed of the price fall could undermine the confidence in many potential home buyers. In China, there is a preference for buying homes when prices are on the rise, with the belief that if prices have not yet increased, they are likely to drop further. As for when China's housing prices will bottom out, a major report by Goldman Sachs in February indicated that the real estate crisis in China is far from over. Over the coming years, China's housing prices, new construction starts, and sales are expected to fall further. The downturn in China's real estate market, which began in mid-2021, shows no signs of stopping. Two analysts from Nomura Securities recently stated in a research report that the fundamental conditions of China's real estate sector have hit rock bottom. This view is echoed by economists within China's system. Head of the research department in Zhongguang Real Estate, Liu Yuan, predicts that the Chinese real estate market will become even more depressing in 2024, with prices far from reaching a bottom. As prices continue to drop, many in China are venting their frustrations over the plummeting market, noting that despite significant price drops, properties remain unsold, erasing years of savings. Some homeowners have faced foreclosure and significant financial losses, leaving them on credit blacklists, making a particularly harsh year for property owners. An independent media commentator from Heilongjiang, known as Madman's Record, shared in a video on March 20th that his house was auctioned off due to defaulting on mortgage payments. On the same day, there was already someone coming to view his house. He said, "I'm truly heartbroken. It feels like my heart is being twisted. I really don't know how I'm going to get through the coming days. It is true that in life, everything may collapse in just an instant." He shared that he bought his house for 1.9 million yuan, marking the first time he had ever purchased a home, which he said had emptied 6 of his wallets. But the current market value of his house has dropped to 1.1 million yuan. After 3 years of the pandemic, his missus suffered losses amounting to several 100,000 yuan, making these years incredibly challenging. He said, "Now, I'm struggling to move forward. Caught between mortgage payments and family expenses. Both my spouse and I are unemployed now, and we simply don't have the money to continue paying the loan. After defaulting for 7 months, the bank seized the house and the court auctioned it off. We've reached a point of no return." The auction price was much lower than the market value, usually only between 70 to 80%. His house was ultimately sold for 900,000 yuan. He stated that after selling the house, he still owes the bank 400,000 yuan. And the initial down payment of 500,000 yuan is gone. Together with various fees, his total losses amount to over 1.1 million yuan. Worse still, he has been added to the credit blacklist, making it impossible for him to consider buying a car or a house in the future. He is also restricted from making high-end purchases, including traveling by high-speed rail or airplane. He is particularly concerned about the potential impact on his 2 children's future, describing his situation as being extremely difficult to navigate. An independent media commentator with 300,000 followers, named Chen Xiaosu, recently revealed a dramatic fall in property values at Yongqing Guorui Ecological City in Langfang City, Hebei Province. Properties there, once believed to have the potential for appreciation, have seen their prices crash from 23,000 yuan per square meter to just 4,000 yuan. She followed the trend in property speculation and learned her lesson the hard way. She observed that the areas surrounding Beijing have seen the fastest drop in property prices in recent years. Among them, the ecological city experienced an even greater decline of over 80%. Positioned between Beijing and Tianjin, this area was once viewed as an attractive investment opportunity. In 2017, many first-time homebuyers also thought of that. They noticed property prices in Beijing Tongzhou district reaching 50 to 60,000 yuan per square meter, and Tianjin city center at 30 to 40,000 yuan per square meter. Therefore, the ecological city, at over 20,000 yuan per square meter, was expected to appreciate to 50 to 60,000 yuan per square meter. She noted that at the time, anyone with some spare cash or who could borrow enough for a down payment was eager to buy property there, fantasizing about selling it for double the price in a few years. People were frantic to purchase properties, feeling that acquiring one was tantamount to striking gold. However, after reaching the peak and the frenzy, what followed was rapid decline. Many saw their life savings disappear, including even the savings of their parents. In 2018, media reported that Yongqing Ecological City had a total planned area of about 10 square kilometers, including semi-detached villas, row villas, hotels, high-rise residences, and bungalows. Inside the city, the roads were mostly empty. There were many shops, but not open. Numerous plots were fenced off and underdeveloped. In the high-rise residential areas, few pedestrians could be seen, and the harsh winter wind made the undeveloped land and bare tree branches appear even more desolate. In the first half of 2018, sales in the ecological city drastically fell. The price of properties dropped from 23,000 yuan per square meter at the beginning of 2017 to 9,100 yuan per square meter. The market fluctuation then was truly like a roller coaster. According to property consultants, the first phase of high-rise residences, totaling about 2,400 units, had only about 200 households moved in. resulting in an occupancy rate of only 8%. In recent years, high-rise buildings have rapidly emerged across various cities in China, but the purchasing power for homes is limited. This has led to a surplus of unoccupied properties entering the market and creating a supply that exceeds demand. As so many properties are unoccupied, some areas have started to be called ghost towns.
诸位一定要看清楚了。
Everyone, you must take a good look. This is the country town of Guan, Hebei. Can you imagine? They dare to build this many tall buildings in a country town? What is the intention behind it? If you don't see with your own eyes this forest of buildings, you can't possibly imagine that this small town with a population of over 600,000 has enough housing for 4 million people. This video only shows a fraction of the high-rise residential buildings in this small town. Similar residential areas with 30-story buildings are plentiful, with at least 100 of them. Each building with 3 units per floor and 4 homes per unit, assuming 3 people per household, can accommodate 1,080 people. Just the high-rise residences alone can house 2.16 million people, not to mention the older neighborhoods and villa complexes. Saying that they can accommodate 4 million people is not an exaggeration. Some areas have been built for 10 years but have an occupancy rate of less than 30%. In remote locations with inconvenient transportation and lacking proper facilities, the occupancy rate is shockingly low. Can such rampant expansion attract more people to buy homes and settle down? Without industrial support, without large-scale private enterprises, relying solely on the commerce and services, it's impossible to sustain so many high-rise buildings. Policy manipulation and artificial speculation can temporarily inflate housing prices, but what people need is a stable income. With housing prices as high as 10,000 yuan per square meter and a monthly income of only 2,500 yuan, the disparity between housing prices and income is extreme. Can the people's income cover their mortgage payments? Every province and city across China is witnessing vast expanses of unoccupied building complexes, commonly referred to as ghost cities. Instances like Chengdu, Chongqing, and Meishan, each hosting a ghost city, alongside Fuzhou's 4 large ghost cities, represent just a few numerous examples. In Shenyang, the capital city of Liaoning Province, the abandoned luxury villa complex called Greenland State Guest House is now a relic of the burst property bubble. Construction began in 2010 and abruptly stopped just 2 years later in 2012. By that time, the villas were mostly complete, lacking only an interior decoration and landscaping. The exact reason Greenland abandoned the project is unknown, but one explanation is the lack of interest due to the steep 9 million yuan price tag for each 600 square meter villa. A decade later, local farmers have repurposed the deserted villas for crop cultivation and animal husbandry, transforming garages into hay storage and fencing off areas between the buildings for cattle. The interiors are now covered in thick dust and debris, a stark contrast to the once elegant marble floors and stone pillars. Not far from Shenyang, in the third-tier city of Jinzhou, a city was built initially because of its seaside location and advertised sea view properties. Despite the neatly planned main roads and landscaping, there are eerily no residents. At night, nearly no lights are on in the numerous buildings, with possibly only one household that is lit. It is said that these apartments are so unwanted that they cannot even be given away for free. A blogger inquired with a local security guard who noted the area's pleasant environment and diligent property management. Despite being completed for a decade, whether the units have sold out remains unknown, but occupancy is extremely low. In Jiangsu's Changzhou, a city with a historically prosperous reputation, and located in the economically advanced Yangtze River Delta region, the new city district contrasts sharply with the bustling city center. This European-style architectural ensemble, located on the banks of the West Taihu Lake in Changzhou, has been abandoned since 2014 and left untouched for a decade. What exactly happened remains a mystery. The lack of people and traffic in its vicinity compared to the bustling city center really underscores its silent desolation. It is truly a ghost city. Foshan's new city, developed over 20 years at a cost of 260 billion yuan, is now referred to as a ghost city of Foshan, with an office building's vacancy rate of 80%. Visitors to Foshan New City might see well-maintained roads, planted trees, and densely built high-rises, seemingly a premium residential area, complete with the city's richest municipal services and landscaping. However, according to the latest official data, the current permanent population is only about 40,000 across 13,000 households. In light of the excessive vacancy rates of buildings in China, the former deputy director of the National Bureau of Statistics, He Keng, made some remarks at a forum last year. He criticized the bursting real estate bubble and the severe imbalance between housing supply and demand. He stated, The current number of vacant houses can accommodate 3 billion people, which means housing is more than sufficient for the 1.4 billion population. The overdevelopment in real estate has popped the housing bubble, with a significant impact on China's economy. Through a high volume of bad debts, banks are unable to recover, idle land awaiting development, and plummeting land prices. Local governments, which accumulated wealth through selling and borrowing land with real estate companies, are now facing a financial crisis. Taiwanese economist Wu Jialong stated on Facebook on March 22nd that China's economy has indeed entered a crisis state, predicting that the crisis could last for at least 30 to 50 years. Wu believes that China's economy was saved by reform and opening up policies 20 years ago, not because of China itself, but because of the full support of the United States, which provided a market for Chinese exports. He argues that the Chinese Communist Party failed to understand or acknowledge this, choosing instead to antagonize the US. Now with the US withdrawing its support, China's economy is facing collapse.